Welcome in to Check the Mic. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. Apologies for the first trial run there, Sam.
Yeah.
But we're back. Hopefully the audio is great. Appreciate the feedback on the first time around.
Just testing it.
Just testing it out. But we're here live right outside the Superdome, man. And what a beatdown by the Eagles. Final was, 40-22. But it was 40-6 going into garbage time there. Unbelievable performance by the Eagles. Offense was outstanding, but, man, that defense, unbelievable from Vic Fangio and company.
Yeah, incredible performance. I mean, if you're just looking at the score, 40-22 feels like a pretty handy win anyway, but, man, it wasn't even remotely that close. It was an absolute one-sided ass-kicking all the way through the week. You know, we've been talking to people, and everyone's been saying it's going to be a great game, two great teams, you know, razor thin, a bit like the last time they matched up. And it was just never that contest. From start to finish, Philadelphia basically had this absolutely in control. I don't know that we've seen Mahomes look like that before.
Yeah, and it's crazy because offensively, Philly's pass game made some big plays.
Yeah.
Thought, a little sketchy early with the A.J. Brown offensive pass interference, but they moved the ball really well without Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
You were saying all game, that was the one good thing Kansas City did
right
in this game was bottle up Saquon. And I guess it continues to just show the versatility and the depth of this Eagles team.
And that happened really early. You know, Kansas City's defense, very early on, the Eagles were trying to run some of those outside perimeter runs. Every single time Saquon was being met by a Kansas City defensive back who was, knifing underneath the block, setting a hard edge, stopping those plays. And yeah, really, I mean, we were saying they were going to come in with a game plan of slowing down or stopping Saquon Barkley. They actually did a pretty good job of that, but it was basically the only thing they did a pretty good job of. Saquon didn't get much going, had a couple of nice runs here or there for first downs, but overall was not really a factor in this game. But, man, everything else went Philadelphia's way.
We'll get into more of the specifics and some of the key plays and everything, but high level, Vic Fangio's defense, man. What they were able to do. Next Gen Stats has the stat out there right now. Remember, they're tracking everything live as we go. 0 blitzes from Philadelphia. Literally 4-man rushes the entire game. And it felt like at times like they were pressuring Mahomes and dominating up front every single snap. It wasn't every single snap, but there was a lot of plays where Mahomes had no chance.
Yeah.
And I think there was a combination. It wasn't just the pass rush, right? They get all the credit because of they're on the field. I mean, they're on the camera. The secondary, right? There was a play early in the game where Quinyon Mitchell, Mahomes wanted to go deep. Quinyon Mitchell was in his hip pocket, the 4.28 speed, 4.21 speed of Xavier Worthy. Didn't matter. Mitchell was in his hip pocket. The coverage unit was great. It was the entire defense. They were taking throws away, rushing the passer well. Unbelievable team defense from Fangio's group.
It was. It really was the whole unit. I mean, I joked at some point during the game, Vic Fangio should be MVP. And obviously, you can't do that. It's a coach. But you have to give Fangio a huge amount of credit, not just in this game, but overall, big picture. I mean, the Eagles collapsed last season in part because both of their units, offense and defense, were not coached very well, right? They lost both coordinators the year before. The replacements were a mess. Everything Sirianni did to try and improve matters seemed to make it worse, and they just completely fell apart. This offseason, they went out there and they concentrated on upgrading both coordinator positions. In comes experience in Kellen Moore, in comes experience, a lot of experience in Vic Fangio. And, man, the job that he's done overall this season in this game, incredible. Both sides deep with the secondary up at the line of scrimmage. The front was amazing. And also, the other thing that stood out to me was how many young players.
Yeah.
Like, this is a team that basically swung and missed on Bryce Huff, right? This guy was a healthy scratch as a big free agent addition. And it doesn't matter because you've got guys like Jalix Hunt, coming in and playing really well.
Yeah, I was going to wait for the whole, what does this mean and, the high-level stuff. But let's talk about it right now because we thought coming into this year, one of the biggest stories of the entire NFL was Philadelphia's collapse last year, just how bad it was because every offseason, our favorite time of the year, which we're in, every offseason we're like, kudos, Howie Roseman. Yeah, you drafted all the Georgia players, but they're all good, right? You added you have a great process in the draft. You've added a ton of good players. You make shrewd moves in free agency. Every year, we're singing the praises of Howie Roseman, but then they fell apart last year. And it didn't make sense because they were coming off of a Super Bowl, plays away from beating Mahomes and the Chiefs just 2 years ago, looked awful in the second half last year. How are they going to respond? How are they going to respond with the 2 new coordinators? Could they fix the coaching issues? Because we knew they were talented. And then every offseason move, not everyone, right? Just mentioned Bryce Huff, but the other ones, Zach Bond, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, their first 2 picks were cornerbacks, right? For Howie Roseman, who we always say offensive line, defensive line. That's where he spends his picks. He goes out the corner, right? They hadn't picked first or second round corners in forever. Both of those guys make a massive impact. Of course, Dijon's got the pick 6 in this game. So just so much to discuss with how the Eagles built this team and the fact that Fangio and Kellen Moore were the people to kind of help get them back on track.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Kellen Moore helped with that offense, getting it on track. You've got Saquon Barkley, an incredible season, independent of this game. Like, he wasn't a huge factor in this game, but overall this year he's been huge. With the defense, I think you have to really credit Fangio a huge amount for just how many of those young guys have been hugely important players with this defense. Like, that's an incredibly young group now as a core for that defense going forward. And so many of them were huge, not just overall this season, but like in this game. You mentioned Quinyon Mitchell and some of the work that he did early in the game. Cooper DeJean had an amazing return, had the pick 6 as well. Like, he had a phenomenal season and game. You mentioned Jay Sweat. Like, Jalen Carter is a monster on that defensive line. This is an incredibly young group that's playing incredibly well.
Two of the guys that made a huge impact, Milton Williams on the defensive line for the Eagles, Josh Sweat. Sweat had 2.5 sacks. Milton Williams had 1.5 or 2, depending on where you look, or what the NFL had. Both of those guys are free agents. Right? They had those guys. They had Sweat on a really nice deal. He's going to go get paid as one of the top pass rushing free agents. And Milton Williams is going to go get paid as one of the top interior pass rushers. Both of those guys, I think, made even more money tonight because it was almost a little reminiscent of maybe the Giants and the shutting down the 2007 Patriots, where you say it's a 4-man rush, and we always joke it's not really a strategy, it's a prayer to win with 4. But the Eagles were able to do that. They're able to win they're able to cover really well without the extra blitzing pressure, and then they're able to get home with 4. Incredible all-around effort.
According to NGS, at halftime in this game, the Eagles were getting pressure on 47% of Mahomes' dropbacks, and they did it without blitzing once in that first half. That's the dream, right? Like, 47% is in that utterly unplayable world. Without blitzing is the absolute dream. You've got everybody in coverage, and okay, some of that is not defensive line wins, it's Mahomes' coverage sacks, it's the whole thing put together. But the point is, if you're dealing with pressure on 47% of your pass plays, it's game over. You're not winning.
Yeah. And look, I know that a lot of people are going to say, well, the storyline is the defensive line completely dominated up front. Like I said, there were plays where that was true. But there was a sack. Mahomes kind of steps through it, kind of steps into it a little bit. He's not really evading pressure at the same level that he was before. I thought the Eagles also did a really nice job as far as gap control when he was scrambling. There was that player who kind of threw it up on a 3rd down where they didn't let him. He had to make him retreat, really break the pocket. But the Eagles pass rush, it wasn't just dominating up front. It was the way they came off their blocks, tracked down Mahomes, and finished plays, and that's why they got those 6 sacks. Of course, the strip sack toward the end, dominant, right? There were some dominant pass rushes in there, but it was just really good fundamental football as well. So I want to talk the big storylines. Let's talk Chiefs in a minute here, but let's talk about our friends over at Zbiotics and something you were asking for last night as you had a few drinks here.
Yeah.
We don't really bounce back the next day like we used to, but you can have a great next day. Zbiotics alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first engineered probiotic. It was by Steve Zbiotics to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut, and it's this byproduct, not necessarily dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. So pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break the byproduct down. So just remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. So with pre-alcohol, you can stay on track and not let winter travel and celebrations like the Super Bowl throw you off course. So go to zbiotics.com/checkthemic to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Check the Mic at checkout. Zbiotics is backed by 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/checkthemic. Use the code CheckTheMic at checkout for 15% off. I want to get into the blow-by-blow of the game and some of the specifics, right? But let's talk Chiefs really quick. Storyline-wise, obviously, they were going for the repeat. They were going for the whole dynasty thing.
Yep.
My initial takeaway, right, this goes both ways. Full credit to the Eagles. However, from a Chiefs perspective, I felt like they made more mistakes in the first half than they had made in the last 10-plus weeks.
Yeah.
Pick 6, bad passes into coverage, penalties. There was 2 penalties on 3rd down that extended Eagles' drives. So an uncharacteristic, unclean game for Kansas City.
I mean, look, remember, we had talked before about the thing that characterizes playoff Mahomes. Playoff Mahomes stops making mistakes, right? He's had multiple postseasons, like entire playoff runs where he's had one turnover-worthy play in the entire postseason. And he made multiple just bad decisions in this game, put the ball in harm's way, threw pick sixes. The second, right, the interception with Zach Vaughn, wasn't an egregious mistake as much as he gets bumped by pressure at the line as he's throwing about. But the Cooper DeJean pick, I mean, that's a bad playoff mistake from Mahomes that he does not typically make. And I mean, this is a game from Mahomes that we usually do not see. Certainly in the playoffs, it was one where he was a big part of the mistakes, the errors, the sloppiness that we saw from Kansas City. Just a very uncharacteristic Kansas City game. And obviously, Philadelphia forced that to a degree. But yeah, there's a big part of that was not the Chiefs we expected to see.
All right, let's get into some of the game flow here. Early on, you have Eagles first drive, A.J. Brown. They decide to go for it. Big 4th and 2, right at midfield. It was full 2. It wasn't a tush-push play.
Yeah.
And you made the point. It feels like all their 4th down plays are low percentage-ish passes.
Yeah.
ISO routes to A.J. Brown. And they worked a lot of the time. They worked 4th and 5 against Washington in the NFC Championship. This one works too, except it's offensive pass interference call.
Yeah, I mean, well, they're so threatening with what they can do inside. Saquon Barkley with Jalen Hurts, with all the trickery and the rushing capability they have inside of that offensive line, that a lot of times defenses are going to end up giving you that one-on-one on the outside, right? Because it is a low percentage play, because generally that's the easiest thing to sort of defend. You've got the sideline as your friend and all those kinds of things. But when you have A.J. Brown, that's a one-on-one shot. That is that's the look you're looking for in any normal circumstance. It's just that you're being forced to, if you want it, you're going to have to take the shot on 4th and short.
They get a back shoulder to AJ a little bit later on a 4th down, but that was essentially, hey, offensive pass interference. The conspiracy theories were already coming out, right? One drive in, and it was a kind of a weak call.
I mean, look, I thought there were a few calls that went both ways. To be fair, like I'm not, we're not doing the huge conspiracy theory. But early in that game, there were several calls that all looked weak, and this is. We hear about playoff football. Now they sometimes, Dean Blandino has been on the show and said, they relaxed the rules a little bit in the playoffs. Right? Let them play a bit more. This was not relaxing the rules. I mean, everything that was getting called early was reasonably ticky-tack. And like, come on, do we need that flag on the field?
Honestly, in Jalen Hurts, he's the Super Bowl MVP. That throw to A.J. Brown won't show up in the stat sheet. Obviously, I think it was the most rushing yards for a quarterback with 72. And very efficient as a passer. I thought he was outstanding at choosing when to scramble. But you take that A.J. Brown, he deserves credit for that A.J. Brown pass that was in stride on that 4th and 2 that got negated. Coming out of that, the Eagles make a good stop on 3rd down. And then their next drive, again, there was 2 key penalties that Kansas City had. The first one, an overthrow to Dallas Goedert. It's 3rd down. Trent McDuffie hits him high, kind of going for the ball, but still, helmet to helmet on 3rd down. Huge play. The Chiefs did some huge penalties that did turn the tide on Philadelphia drives.
Remember in particular, they had a defensive offside penalty that killed a 3rd down Spags. Like Spags dials up the 3rd down blitz and actually destroys the Eagles, buries Jalen Hurts for a sack, and a fairly ticky-tacky defensive offside lined up in the neutral zone type of penalty. No, drive extended, and really, I mean, that was a huge. Can't be a turning point in a game that was just an utter ass kicking, but like that's early in the game when this is still close. And that's a huge defensive sort of stand play from Kansas City that immediately gets taken off the board by either their own sloppiness or, the officials not letting a game play, depending on how you look at it.
He was offside. But that was 3rd and 5. And look, I thought the first big was Jalen Hurts to Jahan Dotson. It looked like a touchdown, but it was the first big-time blitz from Spags. He had sent a couple 5-man pressures, but this was the first. Hey, it's all-out pressure. It's man coverage. Jahan Dotson, he had a couple steps behind. I forget who the corner was. It Watson, I think, on that side. And that was huge, man. It definitely looked like a touchdown. It was down at the 1. Hurts ends up going in, push. But for all the talk about Spags, the blitzes, how you handle it, and a lot of people handle the blitz with, slant, hot route behind the blitz. No, Eagles were going, we got to win those one-on-ones. And it was Jahan Dotson, who was an afterthought pickup before the season for the Eagles, makes the first big play of the game.
Yeah, huge play. They call it down at the 1. Doesn't matter. It's the push play. Gives them a chance. And, Kansas City threw everything they had at that to try and stop it. They had all the bodies inside. It was, as packed as it could get. And the Eagles comfortably picked that up with the push play. So, that was still relatively unstoppable for them. That was the big play that really started the ball rolling. And then from that moment on, they just never looked back.
Then we had what you mentioned the next time. So I was wondering how much that might take Spags out of his game plan, right? How much are you going to be afraid to blitz? He wasn't. He dials up the perfect all-out blitz again. Hurts has no answers on the next one, but they were offside, as you mentioned. That was a 3rd and 5. That kept their next drive alive, led to a 10-point lead there. And then it was wild, man. If you think about the Mahomes-Reed Chiefs, 5 Super Bowls, they've been down by 10 points in all of them. Obviously, they've won 3. They've managed to come back, and they've been down by 10 in the second half in, I think, all of those games. So, they were down 10 early last year against San Francisco. So it was like, I was talking to Eagles fans at the half, like, you guys confident yet? No, of course not. It was 24-0 because they've seen these before, but they're in control.
This felt different. I mean, this felt more like the Tampa Bay Super Bowl, where it's like, even then, because we've seen Mahomes and Chiefs do this so many times, that everyone was sort of expecting something in that game that was never really coming for way longer than we should have based off the game. Like Tampa Bay was doing a pretty good job of destroying Kansas City. I think one difference is I think Mahomes was playing better in that game. It wasn't coming off, but he was generally doing a better job. But this game, like, this felt over way before halftime. Like when the pick 6 was really, that might be it.
So it's 10-0, and then that series, man, the Chiefs, they had already gone 3 and out once.
That's what I mean.
And 4 and out. So they go 4 and out, 3 and out, third drive, and they go sack, pick 6.
Yeah.
And that in the third down stuff, we have seen Mahomes his entire career. All right, it's 3rd and 17. Hey, it's 3rd and long. We'll bail you out. It's okay if we're back on 2nd down. It was the opposite on this one.
0-7 to start on 3rd down. 1 for 9, and they ended 3 for 11 for 3rd down. Like, Kansas City couldn't get anything done on 3rd down all the way through the game. Again, Fangio doing his version of Spags and really throttling the Chiefs on the down that they've been so good at all the way through the year.
Right.
Remember, like, even early in the season, if we're doing the whole sort of revisionist history thing, we're like, well, this was always coming, like Ryan Fitzpatrick early in the year. This kind of game's coming to Kansas City, and then they kind of, pull things together. But the thing that was stopping them from having that kind of game, the thing that was keeping them winning, was on 3rd and 4th down, they pulled it all together and fixed it, right? 1st and 2nd down, they hadn't been particularly efficient all the way through the year. But then on the money downs, Mahomes does Mahomes things. They win on those downs, and then they win the game overall. This game, they got no 3rd downs until the game was already dead. And that really, in a nutshell, is the story.
So I really think this is the biggest turning point in the game. If you're an Eagles fan and you're sitting there, you're up 10-0 and never comfortable, right? And you go in and it's like, all right, the Chiefs have been down 10 all the time. But then they sack, 6. Nothing. That sequence. And then after that, they force them to go 3 and out. Once again, the Eagles stayed on them. I really did think that the Chiefs' quick-hitting offense would work against, an Eagles defense that likes to, give stuff underneath, but they were coming up and tackling. They were getting hard. If Xavier Worthy did catch a pass underneath, they were tackling him. Eventually, he got his, but they made a statement early. And look, plays, but I thought Mahomes dropped his eyes or bailed, from pockets. That was what happened in the Bucs Super Bowl. I know we always talk about the offensive line was hurt, yes, but we also talk about the effect that has, and it affected him early on.
Well, that was another difference, I think, between this and that Tampa Bay Super Bowl. Like, that offensive line for the Chiefs in that Super Bowl was an absolute, disaster. I mean, it was down to basically an entire backup group of offensive linemen, right, against a good pass rushing defensive front, and they were completely overwhelmed, right? And then, Mahomes was making some plays, and then eventually he just couldn't make enough, and that pressure did eventually come too much, and then you start to get home mistakes, blah, blah, blah. This was not that. Like, the Eagles' defensive line was getting the better of Kansas City's offensive line, but you had 2 very strong players in center, Humphrey and right guard Trey Smith. The other group were losing, but they weren't getting they weren't getting destroyed the way the offensive line was against Tampa Bay. So this was not, I think, an example of the line was just completely not workable. There's no way Mahomes could have had a good game given what was in front of him. This was a line generally struggling a bit more than it has, certainly against Buffalo in the AFC Championship game. But then Mahomes very early was playing into that as well, and it spirals, right? When you've got a quarterback who's not handling it well, an offensive line that's not handling it well, and a secondary that's doing well in tight coverage on your receivers, suddenly it's like everything is bad. It just spirals out of control.
I mean, there was a 3rd and 2 where Mahomes throws it at Kelsey's ankle. Kelsey gets his hands on it. I mean, he was off on
so many passes.
Yeah, Mahomes was missing throws. Kelsey wasn't doing much either. But when he finally found an open DeAndre Hopkins just before the half, Hopkins kind of stumbles and they can't connect on that. He was wide open. He would have kept running. I thought there was a play from the press box. It looked like Xavier Worthy was open behind the defense on a play where Mahomes got sacked. It was tough to watch both at the same time. I don't know if he had a chance to get it to him, but again, it was like we've talked about when you see a bad offense, everything's going wrong. It's pass protection, one play, it's the QB, it's dropped. It was everything for Kansas City, and credit the Eagles for making the windows tight and making things difficult.
Yeah, it's tough because trying to figure out sort of how much was it's always the case, how much is a good thing and how much is the bad thing not doing its job. Obviously the Eagles defense did a great job, but I haven't seen Mahomes show up to a game like that and be off noticeably that early.
What about it was that 4th and 3? Again, kind of late in the game. It's pretty much over, but they need to convert everything and score a touchdown. 4th and 3, and you're seeing it right away. You're like, man, Justin Watson's open right over the ball for
on
an
a
easy
coverage bust. Yeah, like they didn't cover him. They had a simple route concept on that side of the field. Watson is uncovered running between 2 zone defenders, and Mahomes never sees it. Like he's going outside to was a Duke Hopkins all the way, and even that. So he misread. You rarely see from Mahomes, just a basic misread of a coverage play. And then when he does decide to try and make the more difficult throw, essentially the one that's actually covered, the throw is badly executed as well. Like the throw's left inside that's almost picked up. Like it was bad as a read and then bad as an executed pass as well. Like the mental and the physical was wrong on that play.
All right, got to tell you about our friends over at Rocket Money. They show you all of your subscriptions all in one place. Helps easily cancel out the ones that you forgot you've been paying for. And as we've been talking about, 85% of people have at least one paid subscription going unused every month. Rocket Money pulls together all my spending across all my different accounts so I can clearly track my spending habits and see where I can cut back. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money's dashboard gives you a clear view of your expenses across all of your accounts. Easily create a personalized budget with custom categories to help keep your spending on track. See your monthly spending trends in each category to know exactly where your money's going and get alerts if bills increase in price, if there's unusual spending activity, or if you're close to going over budget. Rocket Money will even try to negotiate lower bill area. They automatically scan your bills to find opportunities to save. Then you can ask them to negotiate for you. They'll deal with customer service so you don't have to. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goal with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/checkthemic today. rocketmoney.com/checkthemic. So then after all that, going into the half, 17-0.
Yep.
The Eagles punt on 4th and 3. I thought it was an interesting decision in front of the 50. They took a delay of game. I feel like in a closer game, they might go for it. So that was one of the, I think, the book would say any 4th and 2 or 3 near midfield, I think it's an automatic go by the book. And I think Sirianni went by the thing the coaches always talk about. Let's put them deep, because if we fail, it's not even a momentum thing. It's just a free 40 yards, basically. You don't want to give the Chiefs a free 40 yards. So I thought it was an interesting decision. They punt. The Chiefs are backed up, and Mahomes goes first play. Full rush pressure in his face. Throws off a little bit. Zach Bond makes a diving interception. Ends up being obviously the right move for the Eagles. And just another huge turnover for the Chiefs.
I think it kind of was the right move as well. Like that's actually a great example, maybe, of one of those ones where all the things you're calculating on the fly in the game flow, the way that the game is actually unfolding, that kind of makes sense, right? Like you have a huge lead right now. You can pin them down. You're running out of clock, so it's like they have all day to drive, even if they get the ball. You're putting clock pressure on them as well. I actually think that's a sound call. Like that's a good decision, independent of the fact that it obviously worked out that way.
I usually don't like the punt,
right?
But up 17-0. The Chiefs have had no life whatsoever.
Right.
I thought it was the right.
Don't give them any shot of being able to snatch something before halftime and kickstart some kind of comeback that never materialized.
So Jalen Hurts finds A.J. Brown wide open. It's 24-0, and you go into the half with a stat line that just looks fake. The Chiefs have run 17 plays over like 6 drives, 5 or 6 drives, 17 plays for 14 yards and 2 pick sixes. I mean, 2 interceptions, one of which was a pick six. That's what they had going in. I think their first play from scrimmage was their longest play, and that was it.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, like I said, that first half was complete and utter dominance from the Eagles. The Chiefs, I mean, they looked dead and buried. I was pretty confident this game was done at halftime. Even like I would have needed to see something pretty shocking early in the second half. Like, okay, maybe we can get a game here. It was so one-sided. It was like, obviously, there's enough time in the clock. We've seen crazy comebacks before, but I can't see it coming. Like there was no way.
Wanted to go play by play, and that's pretty much the extent of the big ones. Because you're like going into the second half, you want to see something from the Chiefs. Well, they get sacked twice on their first drive.
Yeah,
they were
and
getting
like,
the ball coming out.
It's more the same. Like nothing's changed. We're just doing this again for another half.
How many nails in the coffin? Even the Eagles go up 27 to nothing. I believe that was Jalen Hurts makes a nice decision on the third down to just throw the ball away. Just that simple field goal to make it essentially a 4-possession game was huge.
And critically, like this is not the Kansas City Chiefs of previous seasons. Like this is not an explosive offense. This is not a team that can get back into this with a couple of quick plays here or there. And I know, eventually they got some big plays out of Xavier Worthy late in the game in garbage time, but like this is not a team that has demonstrated that they're capable of. Remember that famous Houston playoff game, right? Where they're down like 21 points or something early in the game. By halftime, they'd erased it all. Like they were in the lead and they were cruising. It's not an offense that can do that anymore. So like even if they pull themselves together and start actually functioning as a unit again, they can't do that. And they're going to need to do that the way their defense is not able to stop what Philadelphia's doing.
And honestly, the Eagles, more explosive team. I kept thinking, hey, they're doing all this without Saquon breaking the big one.
Yeah.
And they didn't really have those opportunities. I thought, the Chiefs did their usual. We're going to stack the box and we're going to, force you to, make a bunch of blocks up front, and we're going to have an extra person to block Saquon. They did a good job with that. Again, Hurts did a nice job with his legs. A couple design runs there that I thought were really nice changes of pace by Philadelphia. But the Saquon run game did not get going. But the pass game did, right? A.J. Brown, you have the negated pass early. He has a couple other big plays in one-on-ones, but then it's Hurts to Devontae Smith, 46-yard touchdown. That was like the final nail in the coffin to make it 34-0 and say, okay, now I think it's insurmountable.
I mean, it was just constant. Like there was no, final nail in the coffin. It was just like they were going around the coffin with nails all the way through the game, right? Like the next nail. Like we were just sealing this thing up from basically 5-10 minutes into the game.
And before the Chiefs got their garbage time touchdowns, you're talking about they had a 95-29 stretch, outscoring their opponents in the 2 biggest games of the year, in the NFC Championship and the Super Bowl. Yeah. And so I think history is going to look back on this Eagles team and say this is what. I'm not saying it's like a top 5 team of all time, but it was one of the better teams of all time with the playoff run that they made and how dominant they were in the last 2, and knocking off a Chiefs team going for the 3.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to say that we saw anything like this coming, but right towards the end, I think of our preview show, we did sort of point out, look, they lost 2 games in the first month of the season, right? After that, the only game they lost was against Washington, who needed to be basically perfect to pull that upset off, right? And that's it. Like this team has gone on an absolute run. In the postseason, okay, the Rams ran them close, but that game felt like it was done way before it actually was. They got a Saquon touchdown, they got out to a big lead, and you're like, all right, this game's put it on ice. And then actually the Rams ended up coming back and making it close again. But outside of that, I mean, they comfortably handled Green Bay. They beat the Rams. They destroyed Washington in the NFC Championship game. And then this, one of the most one-sided beatdowns in Super Bowl history.
Jalen Hurts gets the MVP, as we said earlier. I know some people were talking about this felt like 43-8, the Seahawks-Broncos game where it was the Seattle defense. That was the story. Now, Russ had a very good game, but the story was Seattle's defense. In this game, the story was Philadelphia. Josh Sweat did have 2.5 sacks. I don't know. I mean, I'm fine with Jalen Hurts again. I thought he managed it well. He had that one bad interception, maybe 1 or 2 throws that he might want back. I thought he managed this game extremely well and made some huge plays. And if the game was closer, the throw to Devontae Smith was probably the throw of the game, the 46-yard. If the game was closer, we'd be looking at that as an amazing Super Bowl moment from Hurts to Devontae.
I mean, yeah, Hurts had one bad decision, right, where he puts the ball up under pressure, underthrown, gets intercepted. Outside of that, he was fantastic. Again, remember, he was fantastic the last time they played in the Super Bowl, and he had one big mistake in that game. This time, it didn't matter, right? And I feel really good for Jalen Hurts. I mean, that guy was cut up by that Super Bowl, obviously. You know, you would put it on yourself. You made one really big mistake, turnover, and you end up losing the game. He has a fantastic game. He made good decisions all the way through the game. He was a huge part of them winning. And look, I have sympathy for people saying the story of this game was Philadelphia's defense. Somebody on defense should have won MVP, but it's just harder to do that. Like, obviously, the quarterback is going to put up more stats. It's easier to put to him. You know, do you give it to Cooper DeJean? Do you give it to Josh Sweat? Do you give it to, Zach Vaughn? Like, which guy do you give all the credit for? It's the defense should be MVP. You can't do it.
Get back to raving about the Eagles and the way they built this team. But I'm looking forward to getting home, working out, getting back to my protein, getting back to Orgain. We're so pumped to be sponsored by our friends over at Orgain. I believe real nutrition has the power to make a real difference in people's lives. Orgain's new 30-gram complete protein shakes offer protein-packed real nutrition designed to satisfy your cravings without any added sugar. They're excellent sources of premium, ultra-filtered protein with all 9 essential amino acids. Orgain's products are handcrafted with high-quality ingredients. Looking to feel your personal best, need muscle support or recovery, or just looking to maintain a healthy lifestyle, it's Orgain's 30-gram protein shakes that check all the boxes. So I've been using them as my post-workout. They taste great. Love the chocolate, love the vanilla. You're busy. Also great to just take on the go. So very easy to bring to your workout. And then from protein powders to bars to shakes to tons of other nutritional products, Orgain has products that the whole family will love. Remember, there are no quick fixes when it comes to your health. If you want more protein, give Orgain's 30-gram protein shakes a try. Head to Orgain.com/checkthemic and use code checkthemic for 30% off your order. That's the best offer you'll find, but you got to use the code checkthemic for 30% off. One last time, 30% off. Head to Orgain.com/checkthemic. Use code checkthemic for that 30% off. As far as talk about our prize picks lineups in a minute, didn't have a great run of it in this game. No, it was. Look, I didn't predict this game. I don't know if it was the first show of this one, but I want to make sure I give credit to the Eagles fan at dinner that said they were going to score 80. Right? I saw people tweeting about that before. Eagles fans are over here calling domination. Chiefs fans are like, "Oh, it's going to be close." I know we were sitting on the Eagles side. It felt still like an Eagles crowd. It felt like an Eagles week. It was. I just kept walking around town saying, a lot of green. Fans came out for them.
We were trying to work that out, not just today, but like previous days throughout the week. Is this a heavy Eagles crowd, or are the Eagles fans just louder? Because they're definitely louder, right? But were there also more? And even in the stadium, it was difficult to work out because our auxiliary press box was on the Eagles side of the stadium. The other side of the stadium is all red. Our side is all green. I mean, from the outset, right, when the Chiefs came out to warm up, boos rained down upon them. When the Eagles came out, massive cheers. Late in the game, we're getting sarcastic Chiefs war chants from the Eagles fans.
Yes.
Like the Chiefs are on offense, and we're getting the entire sea of green behind us, giving it the Kansas City war chant sarcastically because of how this game has gone. I mean, again, I think it was a pretty Eagles-heavy crowd, but aside from anything else, the crowd was insane. Like the atmosphere generally. Remember, there was this narrative that Super Bowls have become this sterile atmosphere, and there's no real buzz about the building. It's all corporate. I mean, there were 65,500 people in that stadium, and the atmosphere was awesome.
Yeah, I need to. Yeah, the atmosphere was great. I need to get some feedback in the chat. How was the broadcast? How are the commercials? Because we didn't get that.
How much did you hate the score bug?
How was the score bug? Producer Janko over here built that before he left Fox and left that. It was in like a hidden folder, and I guess they busted it out for Super Bowl night. I like that one. They paid so much money they couldn't pay for the score bug. So yeah, I just wanted to see what you guys thought of the game. Also, shout out to Janko and Davis, our producers over here, for setting this whole thing up. They braved the rain over here to set this thing up, to have the nice backdrop.
Absolutely.
And everything.
Yeah, this is awesome. This is the end of season one. regular season, postseason one of us at Check the Mic. And none of that's possible without all the people listening to us, but also without Janko, Davis, and everybody else. Will,
yeah, social media team, Mike Tannenbaum for taking a shot on us, and bringing us in, everybody at 33rd, and it's been great.
Another thing the chat says is this setup is the shortest I've ever looked. This is not even the shortest I've looked tonight. I was standing a full step above you on the concourse and still looked like a foot shorter than you.
It's your own fault. You have a booster seat that is designed for travel.
I refuse to bring a booster seat with me.
No one will know. We could just say that I'm shrinking.
I have one. I've been sent one, and I'm not using it. I'm just not going to do it.
We could say that I'm shrinking. Let's somewhat wrap this up. High-level storylines.
Well, before we get to high-level storylines, this is your first Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
So what was the experience like for you, the Super Bowl virgin?
I loved it. The atmosphere was very cool. I thought the entire atmosphere was buzzing. I thought that was really cool to experience. You had warned me about the small seats. I was blessed, or we were at 3013. We had our 3 seats. They were all on the end. And so I got to sit at least on the end. I could stick my legs into the aisle. Had I not been on the end,
I don't know how you would have managed.
Serious trouble. I would have found something else to do. There was the usual media complaints with internet issues. It's fine. I had a great time. I thought it was a lot of fun.
You would have had major problems if you hadn't been in the aisle.
Yeah, I would have sat. There was an open row behind us. I would have done something else.
Yeah,
but I enjoyed the entire experience.
For the past couple of years, I've been parked next to Greg Rosenthal, and that's the way the seats are done.
Greg's a good guy to sit next to.
If you've ever seen Greg Rosenthal, I'm just going to say there's a difference between sitting next to you and sitting next to Greg when it comes to how much elbow room you've got. When you're there, didn't have a lot. It's like you being in the middle seat of a plane. It's not good.
No, it's not. And hopefully, we won't have a middle tomorrow night when we fly home. But it was a great experience. After 3 years of trying to get in, they finally let me into the stadium.
Yep, finally got in the building.
It was great,
credentialed and everything.
And we heard big media complaining about some of the access and putting media in the parking garage with a slab of carpet. It was all worth it. It was all great. It was a good game. Good to hear. Let us know your favorite commercial so we can go back and check out the commercials
later.
We'll check them out later. And then we'll talk a little bit about our prize picks. We shout out to Prize Picks also for presenting the show this entire season and being with us from start to finish. It was not a great finish for our Prize Picks lineups.
No. Are we going to go through that now?
Yeah, we'll go through it now.
Okay.
I think were we both in 0 for?
Yeah. I went 0 for 4.
Oh, geez, look at yours. You had Xavier Worthy less than?
I thought that Xavier Worthy would have less than 56.5 receiving yards, and instead he had like 200. What did he get up?
You thought it said less than 156.
157
Actually went
and
over
2
that
touchdowns. To be fair, a lot of that happened in garbage.
Garbage time Worthy.
I also said that Noah Gray would have more than, 11 and a half receiving yards. I thought that only needed 1 catch. He got his catch, but it went for 2 yards.
We got our Mahomes free square, though.
We did. Though he threatened that for a while. I thought A.J. Brown would have more than 5 receptions. He got robbed of 1 with that pass interference penalty, and he ended up with 3. Didn't get that. And then finally, I thought that Chris Jones would dial one up on a key 3rd down. He'd go out, he'd beat Jordan Mailata or whoever, and he got no sacks. So 0 for 4.
And I was merely 0 for 3. Yeah, I had Isaiah Pacheco's rushing yards. He ended up with 7. And I had Trent McDuffie get a pass breakup. I don't think he did.
He got his hand on one.
He got his hand on one.
And A.J. Brown just, took it away from him.
So 0 there, and I had Dallas Goedert getting it when all the other Eagles did. So
that wasn't great.
Not great at all. No, not a great finish. But overall, it was a great season with Prize Picks. They're showing our graphics.
It was a lot of fun.
They're showing the X's.
A lot of fun. It wasn't successful, but it was a lot of fun.
It was a fun year. The whole year, the majority of the year was successful. And so, appreciate Prize Picks and for them being with us the entire season. The best place to get real money sports action. Over 10 million members, billions of dollars in awarded winnings. And remember, you can download the Prize Picks app today. Use code Check the Mic. Still get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code Check the Mic on Prize Picks. Get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's all guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, what else do you want to talk about here? We usually go for an hour. We got 20 minutes. There's other NFL storylines that we could touch on a little bit. Aaron Rodgers, maybe go back to the Jets, but let's put a bow on the Super Bowl and circle back to a little bit of story here. The Eagles and the Chiefs coming out of this. What's your biggest takeaway coming out of this?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there's some underrated sort of storylines that we haven't touched on as much. Obviously, the whole sort of story was that Eagles defense, Kansas City offense. I was interested that they never changed that offensive line. They didn't put DJ Humphries back in there at any point. Like at halftime, he came out.
You kept saying
his
that.
helmet.
Yeah,
helmet was here. He was standing there on the sideline. Looked like he was ready to go in. And at no point did they put him in. Look, again, we said, look, it felt like the offensive line was just getting wrecked. It wasn't really that. It was a combination of coverage. It was a combination of Mahomes and the offensive line. I do wonder, though, whether you ever thought both the guys on the left side are struggling. Do we want to just, Joe Thuney, go back to guard where you were an all-pro caliber guy? We'll make it work with one guy, even if DJ Humphries comes in and is getting his ass kicked. Like, we'll figure it out. They never made that switch.
And there were plays where they were sending extra help to that side, and they're still giving up pressure. Again, if we go back sack by sack and what the issues were, there was a play where Travis Kelce was laid off the ball, didn't block anybody. That Kelce and Isaiah Pacheco trying to block an edge rusher didn't work. I mean, so when people say it was the offensive line, Pacheco, tight ends, I mean, it was pass blocking as a whole.
Right. So that, I think, was an interesting element. And then the other thing is those Chiefs wide receivers were just struggling so much to get out, even into patterns sometimes. Travis Kelce had an awful game. I mean, he was responsible for at least one of those sacks. He was laid out of his stance multiple times. There was one sack where he was so laid out of the stance that by the time he sort of put an arm on Josh Sweat as he went by him and then was like, oh, I'm so far beaten. I'm just going to sort of drift out and hope maybe there's a pass to be had here. I mean, that Kelce looked toast.
Yeah, he did. I mean, it was the other play where he was kind of wide open, didn't create anything after the catch.
Just sort of stopped.
Fell
over.
The one where Mahomes threw it low, but he just looked dull. Right? Late to react to it, right? It looked like running.
And look,
which is coming out soon.
God, that was
get ready. You're telling me.
More depressing for you, but still.
And then just to circle back to the Eagles, I mean, I think multiple years of Howie Roseman doing a great job of building this team. Remember the 2022 draft where we said that season, some of the moves that he made. They wheeling and dealing coming out of the 2021 draft. They had 2 first-rounders. They draft Jordan Davis. More importantly, though, they trade a first-rounder for A.J. Brown in that draft. That offseason, they pick up Darius Slay and James Bradbury. It was like, all right, those 2 guys are going to save the secondary. They did for a season. Then Bradbury felt old last year. They move on from him and replace him with 2 young stars in Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. A lot of moves for the Eagles that all culminated in this dominant win.
Would we be about to see dueling dynasties? That's never really happened, right? Where you've got 2
that's too early.
Competing dynasties at the same time that actually end up not just consistently meeting in the Super Bowl. That's happened before. But when it's happened, one side has generally been dominant, right?
Might be too early for that, but I think
this is now
Detroit's still going to have their voice heard, of course, in the coming years.
Yeah, look, and it's hard enough for one team to consistently be in the Super Bowl time after time, let alone 2 of them getting the same matchup. We've now had. You look at this Eagles team, we've just been talking about how not just loaded they are as a roster, how young they are as a roster. All this sort of group, aside from a couple of free agents, are coming back, are probably going to get better in the future. I mean, this team is set up to come back again, and we've always been saying, as long as Kansas City has Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, this team is going to be contending. Well, I mean, they were, one game away from a three-peat, but all of a sudden this could be right?
I saw some people talking about too. You look at this Kansas City offense doing this, and look, it's not a great Kansas City offense relative to what they were early in Mahomes' career, but they were doing absolutely nothing, 3/4 of the way through the game. And then you look at what Jaden Daniels in Washington did against Philadelphia multiple times this year. So that's the other team Philly's competing with now, Jaden Daniels. So I think the NFC looking pretty competitive. The other thing about Kansas City, look at their free agent list. So Marquise Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, both guys free agents, and Nuke Hopkins didn't look great in the second half as when they traded for him. I thought it could be a key pickup. Trey Smith is going to be maybe the highest paid guard in history coming out of this, and Is Kansas City going to make him one of their $20+ billion players here after the offensive line performance here? So maybe another hole to fix there. And they've only got 3 defensive linemen under contract next year. A whole bunch of their rotational players, Nick Bolton, Justin Reed, all those guys free agents. So, Kansas City's got some work to do heading into the offseason as well.
Yeah, they do. I mean, this team is going to have some turnover on a year-by-year basis. It's going to be difficult to keep trace because of how much money they already have tied up in that offensive line and the problems that they had in the offensive line anyway, right? So they've got some work to do on that unit for sure. But again, this narrative, I think, is still true that as long as they have Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, they're not going anywhere.
We haven't touched on the Saquon thing because he wasn't a huge part of this game. Did have a big catch down the field that he almost dropped and made a big play. It was a huge play, though. But the Saquon thing, if he was a bigger part of this game, we'd be talking about him, the Giants, and, everybody's going to be talking about that aspect of things. And I don't think, our friend Pat Leonard, we were on his show this week. He was doing this. This was like Babe Ruth to the Yankees. It's not that. It is not Babe Ruth to the Yankees. Come on, man. This is Saquon joining a powerhouse of a team and being a huge driver. But again, tonight showed the depth and the different ways that the Eagles have to win. That's why they're special, because they can win with the pass game, win with the run game. But what a story for Saquon. Everybody seems to love him, all the teammates, and now he gets a ring. I think it's an awesome story, even if he's not Babe Ruth.
There's a lot of, I said a while ago that of the 4 championship teams, the least interesting story was the Eagles, right? You had Kansas City's 3-peat, you had Washington and a rookie quarterback, leading them from where they'd been, and you had Buffalo finally getting over the hump after being 0-4. That being said, there are still great stories on this Eagles. Saquon Barkley getting his ring after being let down, I guess, by the Giants, right? Their inability to put a good enough team around him, that his specialness could shine the way it did this year. Jalen Hurts, we talked about the disappointment of last Super Bowl, the fact that he was a big part of not winning that Super Bowl despite playing so amazingly. His redemption arc, so
Hurts
many.
Very close to 2 rings. Very close to 2 rings, and played well enough to get both.
Exactly. The best offensive line in the NFL, showing how important that still is. Vic Fangio's defense. Remember, we are months away. We're like a year removed from Vic Fangio being basically run out of Miami because the players thought he was too mean, right? All of a sudden he comes in.
Maybe it wasn't Vic.
Right. Maybe Vic wasn't the problem, Miami defense, right? Maybe this is actually a guy that you should be listening to because he's got some pedigree with it.
Other news that came out today, I think we save it for Wednesday. We can get back to a full Wednesday show, but Aaron Rodgers, unlikely to be back with the Jets. I think I said it backwards earlier. Unlikely to be back with the Jets. Deebo Samuel asking for a trade.
Yeah.
You are you're under attack by some fans for being the lone dissenting voter for Jaden Daniels Offensive Player of the Year. He'll never be known as a unanimous Offensive Rookie of the Year because of
history. Yeah, change history. History that nobody ever knows.
You'll have to explain. Let's get I want a full statement from you on Wednesday.
I mean, look, anyone that's listened to this show knows how that was going anyway. We talked through this before. Brock Bowers and Jake Daniels, that combination. But nowhere in that award mention, it's not like MVP, right? Where value is really baked into the name, and therefore it kind of has to be a quarterback award. There's no reference to how important the player was, how much value he brought to the team. It's just how good was each rookie. Who had the most outstanding all-around season? I think
wait till Wednesday. Wait till Wednesday for your
No, look, we're not dedicating a massive segment to this. Waste everybody's time.
No, it's great.
But it's most outstanding all-around season, I think, is the overall terms, right? Brock Bowers had one of the top 5 seasons that's ever been had by a tight end. And he did it. He broke records for all rookie receivers, not just rookie tight end receivers. He broke a record that had stood since 1961, his position. By any measure, Brock Bowers had one of the best seasons that's ever been had at his position. Of course, that is Rookie of the Year worthy. Jaden Daniels won it because we give quarterbacks a boost for all these things. Oh, it's the hardest position in football, but it is. And therefore, it's worth more. It should be recognized more. That's not anywhere in the definition for the awards. So I don't think you should artificially boost a guy for being a quarterback.
I'm surprised you weren't the only one, to be honest.
I'm surprised Tom Brady, his owner, didn't vote for Brock Bowers. If I was Brock, I would be asking some questions.
We're glad we didn't have that conflict of interest. We were glad we did not.
Well, as Will Brinson wrote an article, we were saved from the one dissenting vote being Tom Brady. And suddenly we have to talk about owner Tom Brady voting for his player as the only guy that stopped Jaden Daniels.
The wind knocks all the cameras, lights down, and everything. Let's wrap this up. So,
but anyway, the last piece of news we have to talk about is we are official. There is a game happening in 2025 in Dublin. Home.
You have a home game.
You have a home game.
I have a home game. Week 4.
I don't
Pittsburgh,
think that's official yet.
Oh, yeah.
The Pittsburgh Steelers early in the season.
I've seen. I'm not
month of the season.
I'm not breaking information. I saw this on Twitter. This is not inside info that I have. It may or may not be in the first month of the season.
Yeah.
It's in Dublin.
Yes.
It's probably going to be before noon Eastern.
Yes.
And the Steelers are going to be one of the teams.
You know what stadium it's in?
Who is it?
You did know this. You had it in your
I
head.
had it before. I was going to say something. I'll tell you later.
Croke Park.
Croke
Park, the home of the Gaelic Athletic Association, an 82,000 seater stadium. Although it'll be less than that because this will be put seats in Hill.
It'll be a great week. We'll go back. Maybe you can get your IAFL Hall of Fame jacket.
Hall of Fame jacket. I don't know if they have jackets. But
we'll make you one.
I mean, look, I honestly think we can get some pretty awesome stuff. We can have a check the mic trip to Dublin. We can show you around Ireland. We can, do some stuff with the Hall of Fame. We can do some stuff with the Pro Football Ireland guys. They've been all up in New Orleans doing their stuff, but now they can do some stuff with us in Dublin.
Let us know. Let us know in the chat if you want to join us in Dublin. One of the weeks, maybe in September, maybe early October. Who knows?
Yeah. And
we could be out there. So, yeah, thanks again to everybody who's made year 1 of Check the Mic, season 1, a smash of success. Everyone behind the scenes, all of our fans, everybody that's joined us. And it's my favorite time of the year, Sam. It's off-season time. It's free agency. It's the draft. So we're going to have plenty. We're going to be back on Wednesday, back to our YouTube this week. More behind-the-scenes stuff coming out from the Super Bowl. It's been a fun week here in New Orleans.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
Good city.
This has been a very fun Super Bowl trip.
A lot of people raving about how good the city was for it. I enjoyed the food, and you can see more of that on the YouTube channel. I think that's it. I think it's time to wrap it up. Thanks to everybody for tuning in.
Definitely go and check out all of the behind-the-scenes YouTube content. We've already got one on us crushing oysters. We're going to have a whole week-long behind-the-scenes video. So that'll go out on the videos section of the YouTube. Make sure you go and check that out because those are
oyster video, Matt Patricia, Hall of Fame discussion with Greg Cosell, Ashton Gentry. Go check them out.
They're super fun to do. I really like the way they turn out. And if you want to see more of them, you actually have to watch them.
We need more people watching. Need more people watching so we can do more behind the scenes. More oyster eating. Let's go get some oysters right now. Can we go get dinner? Can we go get dinner, guys?
Have you learned nothing from what happened to Mike Renner?
Oh, yeah. I'm not having oysters for the rest of the week. Renner had an incident on the way home on Friday.
So been taken out by some oysters.
Yeah, luckily we've survived. So I'm gonna go get some non-oysters and wrap this week up. We good?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you again on Wednesday. More Check the Mic.